All right, Matt. Well, I was actually reading the Phil Steele magazine on the flight here, and I don't know what you told Phil, but you seem really high on your team.
Yeah.
Based on that, what? Just give us your overall view going into camp and why you seem so high on this group.
I think the humans I probably am so high on. Just, I feel like this is the tightest knit group of kids we've had at one time at one place. And, I think probably a little bit of the adversity we had to go through a year ago and, the ability to fight through that and overcome some of that was really big for this group. And I think then the other part of it is you're so young and I feel like talented maybe from top to bottom as we've been. And to watch this group really come back in the offseason and really want to get better and not feel like we've arrived or we've accomplished anything to where we want to go, it's been really rewarding. And so I think all those things make me really excited about the opportunity to go compete with this football team this year.
Speaking of those guys, it's actually kind of staggering when you go back and look at what Higgins did in the second half of last year. Where was he at as far as scratching the surface? I mean, what could this year be like for that guy?
Well, I mean, I think, Chris, you saw it in the second half of the season last year. I mean, I think you just really saw his confidence and consistency just blossom. And, he's a dominant football player. I think he's a football player that physically can dominate the game at times. He's got the speed and the athleticism to dominate the game, but he's got great precision in his route running and his ability to go catch the ball at the catch point. So I think we're really excited about Jaden and where he's got the ability to just continue to evolve into. But, he's a guy that when you do sit and look at that videotape from the second half of the season, it was really special.
How do you view that entire receiving core, Ben included, and how do you want to utilize that going this forward?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's exciting. There's been times where we've had maybe an A player, but we've lacked maybe some of the tools around it to take the pressure off of that A player. Where, man, you look at what Jaylen's done and you look at what Jaden's done, and you certainly, even if you look at Daniel Jackson, there were moments last year where, Daniel in the first half of the season was making some of those plays that were big time plays, and you get him back fully healthy, and where Benny Nagoye is right now, and then you look at that tight end room, and so I think we're bullish about that, and again, I think when we've had that, you go back to Butler and Lazard in that area, man, you feel like you can be a little bit more aggressive, you can be a little bit more, in terms of what you do down the field, you can do some different things. So I think we feel that way, and then obviously with Rocco's experience and knowing what he can do now compared to maybe what we didn't or did know at the beginning of the last season, you can feed into his strengths with that group as well. So I think it allows you to spread the football around, it allows you to not be one-dimensional, and it gives you the ability to really attack all of the football field, and that's something when we've had the ability to do that, I feel like we've been our best on offense.
Obviously, you're going to be committed to the run, but does that give you the optionality to go, pass to set up the run rather than vice versa, which I think you guys historically have tried to do?
Yeah, and I think you saw even a little bit in the second half of the season last year, we were able to do that once we kind of felt, I think, where Rocco was. And, I think when you look at Brock and, kind of his meat of his career, we were able to do that with him really well too. And so just to have the option to do that is big. And I think that's something from our end of it. Again, when we've had the ability to do those things, we've been our best on offense. And so I think that part is really exciting for us offensively.
You guys are still going to want to run the football, though. What's the situation look like there with who you've got coming back, and then, getting Jaylen, how's his health looking, and then Dylan Lee as well?
Yeah, I think there's that room is really talented top to bottom. I mean, you look at what Carson Hansen did as a true freshman. You certainly saw the highs of Abu. I think you guys all saw what Dylan Lee's got the ability to do this past spring, and I think that guy's had an exceptional summer. And then you talk about Jaylen, and I know you guys didn't get to see him, but I think we were all really bullish on what that guy did for spring balls this year. And, you're like, dang, man, there's a lot of options at the running back room. And I think a lot of that running game obviously continues to hinge on the growth of the O-line. And, we've all talked about that. Like, to me, that's the last step of this offense being a lead, is that group really taking another huge step forward. And, I think we're really confident about what that group's done this offseason and look forward to watching that group continue to evolve.
Jaylen Travis coming in, has he been able to kind of make up for lost time coming in the summer? And is he a guy that's going to be an anchor on the outside, you think?
Well, first of all, I think I give Jaylen a lot of, I give him a lot of credit because I think one of the things he was able to do, even though he was finishing up his degree at Princeton, with things like Zoom and some other things, he was really able to kind of stay in the loop of like what we were doing at times through spring practice, and I thought that was really positive. And I think he kind of came in, hit the ground running. He had a little small setback that he had. We kind of knew and got him right, but man, he's been full strength here the last 3 or 4 weeks, and just such a physical presence. He's a guy that's got elite size and ability, and and it's going to add great competition right now. I think that's one nice thing at tackle is you got some tackle bodies that you put Tyler Miller out there, you put Tyler Morrow out there. Obviously, we know what James Neal can do, and James has got the ability to play inside and outside. And then you bring in Jaylen. You're talking about guys at tackle that maybe we just haven't had all the time, is some of that length and size at the tackle position. So we're excited to see how that competition really unveils itself in the early part of fall camp.
You got a 6'7" tackle who's a Princeton graduate. That's kind of different.
Yeah, different. Yeah.
Is he like the intellectual leader of the clubhouse right now? Like, what is it like just talking to him?
Yeah. Well, sometimes in the O-line room, man, if you just got any sort of Ivy League, you're away in the leader of the clubhouse. But no, I think Jaylen's just brought a maturity to our team in general. The thing that's fun for us is we recruited him out of high school, so we knew him and his family. To be able to reconnect now 4 years down the road and just see what this man has accomplished in his life. You're talking about the Wooden Award winner this past year in college athletics. Only 2. He's the male winner of it, recipient of that award. To what he stands for as a human being, as a man. Then you talk just about like the athleticism and the football player. There's a lot to be excited about, and obviously, he could have went to the draft last year. He could have obviously taken his degree and gone and started law school, but his choice was, I want to be the best football player I want to be. So there is a maturity about his mission and what he's trying to do, and it's bigger than just his own mission that he's been able to bring into that O-line room, and I think he's already brought a spark and an energy to that group. So again, I'll be excited to watch how that evolves through the fall.
You talked about Jaden's success, the additions you made to the receiver room with Isaiah and Eli. How much did his success help you in your pursuits of those 2 receivers in the transfer portal?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for us, we've been really successful just recruiting. I think the history of what Lazard has done, and certainly what Akeem Butler did and Xavier Hutchinson has done, I think that has helped us, and then, what Jaylen and Jaden did a year ago, and I think Rocco's success as a quarterback. I think, if you're a wide receiver, you want to play with good players and you want to play with a good quarterback. I think that probably helped us as much as anything. So, we're excited about those 2 additions. I think both those guys have come in, and obviously we had Isaiah in the spring, and he's been really fun to watch. I mean, he's a big physical body for you guys that have covered us, Matt Eaton, and kind of like a bigger version of Matt Eaton and what he brought to our team in that era. And and then I think when you talk about Eli, you talk about a guy very similar to Jaylen. A guy that's a returner, a guy that can play in space, but he's also a really dynamic route runner that can even go on the outside at times and really give you some answers there. So we feel like that room's really healthy. There's a lot of competition. It's going to be fun to watch who rises to the top and who continues to help us, but I think there's a lot of guys that can help us there.
You've had success with transfer receivers in the past. When you're recruiting transfer receivers, what kind of traits do you look for? Are they the same? Are they different from high school players? How do you go about evaluating transfers at that position?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us at any position, it still starts culturally. We want to make sure that we find guys that fit who we are and what we're about. And, I think we have to, at Iowa State, we have to fill our roster every single way. It's not always just going to be high school recruiting, even though that's the foundation of what we've done. But we got to do a great job of kind of forming the best team every year. And I think one of the things we've been able to find at the receiver positions is guys that maybe have been looking for a different opportunity, and that's been really beneficial for us, at least during our career so far.
How important is it bringing back reps and experience on the defensive line? You had essentially 4 guys last season with limited starter experience. How important is it for them to have that kind of in their belt going into the season?
Yeah, I think you talk about that whole front 6, man, and I'd say even front 7, just because I think you'll see us probably play a little bit more 4 down at times this year, just because we have so much depth on that D-line. But I think when you look at this team, it was almost like stunning to like go back and watch last fall and then like see us this spring, and I did that at times during the spring just because we were so young at linebacker and on the D-line, and to watch that group evolve and get better, and it needs to evolve and get better. I'm sorry, Travis, but this ability for this group to just take another huge step forward. I think gaining confidence from playing last year, but then going into the offseason and say, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? And then how do I go to work to fix that? I think that tool and mechanism was really huge for really that front seven, and I think you're going to see a completely different looking defensive front for Iowa State. I think the linebacker room looks as good as I've ever seen it. I'm really excited about what that group looks like. I think that group will help the D-line even be that much better. But, man, you talk about what Cooper Ebel has done physically and what he looks like right now, and obviously Caleb Bacon and Jack Sadowski, and then, this Cale Brazina is a guy that has probably been as big of a wow factor in our program, as anybody, and has done a great job over the course of the last 6 months, and then Will McLaughlin. So you got that group coupled with this D-line that's coming back, and then the addition of Kennard Snyder and some of the other players on this. Samuel Same went from a 205-pound freshman to, he's a 225-pound now defensive end that looks like he can go in and, man, be a real factor for us. So I think we're excited about what those pieces look like and the maturity that group's made.
You've talked a lot about the offense and its potential. Is that defense getting overlooked with what they have coming in and coming back, and John's track record, obviously?
Yeah, and it's probably hard to overlook because I think everybody has such great respect for what John has accomplished and really what we've been able to do defensively. But I think there's areas of growth that we knew as we went into the offseason that we needed to make a big step forward if we want to be an elite championship caliber defense. And, getting off the field, our pass rush, some of the third down things that we can be better at. And, again, the maturity and growth of that unit. Again, there's so many young guys that were forced to play last year and that did play last year. I think the positive that we're gaining is there is depth now. You have a true two deep that feels like you could have, and I've always tried to have 22 starters, in terms of on the defensive side of it. And I think we're a lot closer to that right now than we've been in a long time on defense. So I think that makes you feel very confident and, again, excited to get to fall camp to see, are we really there? Is that really what it looks like? But I think the growth that those guys have made on the defensive side and again, having the experience a year ago, it's been fun to watch that group really evolve forward.
You get the depth at safety. Those guys just got hurt a lot last year. Will that help you this year? Because so many guys had to play?
I think it's huge, Chris. Yeah, I think that's, so right. I mean, you talk about Jamison Patton and, a guy that played really meaningful reps as a true freshman last year. And, man, safety's hard. I don't care how you slice it. That's a hard spot to play. And, for that guy to get quality reps, make some big plays, and then to watch his physical growth and development, it's been really fun. You talk about Drew Surges, a walk-on freshman last year that had to play meaningful reps and had some big plays and had some plays he would love to have back. But, man, what that guy physically looks like compared to where he was. Tayshaun James, a guy that I'm really bullish about, a guy that, played critical reps. That Oklahoma State game had 2 huge third down stops in critical moments. And, we ended up being able to redshirt Tayshaun a year ago. But, man, what that guy's got the ability to become, I think there's just a lot of excitement about. Everybody talks about Coop and Bo, and everybody wants to talk about, Malik. But, man, I'm watching these other guys, and it's like, whoa, buddy, there is great competition there right now. There's great depth. We got 2 freshmen that came in that have been really impressive already. This Marcus Neal that came in from Kansas City, who looks like a grown man, has already been super impressive early on. And then Van Dinter from, the Wisconsin area. I mean, both those guys look like, man, really mature football players. So there's more depth there. There's a lot of competition, and it's going to be fun to see how the 2 deep unfolds itself. And can you have even more than a 2 deep at those positions? If we do, I think it'll really benefit us.